Okay,
That's no.
whenever you're ready, would you like me to pull up the agenda or do you have it in front of you?
I have a copy.
Okay.
It says who reading or continue. Can I do continue?
Well, what happened?
Let me start with the timeless words. Pursuant to Governor Baker's COVID-19 orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Wilmington Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to participate in the meeting via Zoom can do so by clicking on the published link. Members of the public who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 885-2151-8116. Press pound and press pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by following the steps previously noted, then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller wishes to speak. In the event that despite our best efforts, we're not able to provide real-time access, we'll post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we are able. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:06. We'll do a round of attendance. Vinny, are you here? You are, but you're muted.
I'm here.
Thanks. Ron, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Laura?
I'm here.
Is that, and Don, I am here. Did I miss anyone? That's it so far, right?
That's it so far, yes.
Good. So the first order of business is a request for determination of applicability for 6 Towpath Drive.
Yeah, this is John Rooker. I'm here for 6 Towpath.
John, you can say what happened on the property if you'd like.
Oh, okay. So we have 3 trees that we had taken down, 2 of which after the fact we looked and they were within the 100-foot buffer zone. So I'm just following up on that action. Oops. So you can see tree 1 and tree 2 below the yellow line are within the buffer zone. The yellow line is the 100-foot buffer zone back to the water.
So yeah, we didn't have any other comments other than probably would like him to add 1 replacement tree.
Okay.
But other than that, Don, Mr. Chairman, we didn't have any comments. Any other
Thanks. Any questions or comments, Vinny?
I don't have any.
Ron?
Cameron, could you clarify, are you talking about 1 tree for 1 tree or 1 tree for 2 trees?
1 tree for both, because the ratio is for every 3 trees taken down, 1 was replaced. So we're just gonna have him do 1.
Okay.
Laura?
No questions.
Okay, nor do I. So is there any feedback from the audience on 6 Towpath Drive?
And if there are any members on the, or listeners or participants who have any questions or comments, you can use the raise hand function. Or if you're on the telephone, you can press *9. And Mr. Chairman, we don't have any raised hands at this point.
Okay. That being the case, could I have a motion to issue a -3 determination for 6 Towpath Drive, please?
So moved.
Vinnie made the motion and Laura seconded the motion.
And Mr. Chairman, would you like to have us condition that with 1 replacement?
Certainly.
Okay.
For the vote, Vinnie,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for a notice of intent for Shady Lane Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, Paul Looney, Town Engineer, here representing the Department of Public Works for a continued notice of intent for a sidewalk extension project and culvert replacement on Shady Lane Drive. If I may share my screen. Can you all see the locus map?
Yes.
Great. So just a quick reminder, this is 1,200 feet of sidewalk extension between Birchwood Road and Whitfield Terrace. It is the second phase in a 3-phase sidewalk extension project. It also includes a culvert replacement here. It's a 12-inch CMP, twin CMP culvert that's in a state of disrepair that we're replacing with a pipe arch culvert of RCP type. If you recall, we met 2 meetings ago, and I had explained to the commission that we had met with and addressed all of DEP's comments on the project. We had a couple lingering items at that time that we were waiting for the wetland scientists to get back to us to add details to the plan. So we asked for a continuance. After that meeting, we received follow-up comments from the Department of Planning and Conservation, where we addressed those comments as well, which is why we asked for a follow-up continuance. And though the resulting plan changes from all of the above, I guess, from the last time that you had seen the plan, where we added material specification for the wetland replication area, the pipe embedment, and we also now we rearranged the pipe outlet for the catch basin to be offline instead of inline, which is more in line with the state stormwater policy. We received an order of conditions, a draft order of conditions. We agree with all of the special conditions. There are no issues. Our schedule here is to go to construction if the commission approves the plan, and the order is to go to construction in July. This for the sidewalk extension. This would put us in a great position in August then to do the culvert replacement, which is when you want to do it to avoid any high groundwater table and the potential for dewatering. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has. And I truly want to thank you for your patience on this project. Thank you.
Thanks. Cam or Valerie, any comments from you?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think Paul covered comments, we did, like you said, we did prepare a draft that includes some special conditions, having a wetland scientist oversee the replication area. And other than that, I think all of the, some performance standards for the wetland replication area. But all of our comments were just on the plans.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments, Vinny?
I don't.
Ron,
I'm fine, thanks.
Laura?
No questions.
I can't see if Alex has joined us. So apparently not. I don't have any questions as well. I'll open up the floor to any comments or questions from the audience for Shady Lane Drive sidewalk extension.
So far, we don't have any raised hands.
Okay. At this point, I'd welcome a motion to close the public hearing for the notice of intent for Shady Lane Drive sidewalk extension project.
So moved.
Laura made the motion, second.
Anybody else? Second.
Vinny seconded the motion. To the vote then, Vinny,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes,
Laura,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Great.
Now a motion to issue the order of conditions for the Shady Lane Drive sidewalk extension project.
so moved.
Ron made the motion, seconded by Vinny. Vinny, how do you vote?
I'm okay. Yes.
Ron,
Yes,
Laura,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Good night.
Yep, good night. Okay, it's, we can move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the continued public hearing for the notice of intent for the Salem Street rear, which is the well fields replacement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like Paul Looney before me, I'm also representing the town of Wilmington Public Works. And we're here for a continuation from last meeting. With me here tonight are our consultants from Kleinfelder. We have Kirsten Ryan, Mike Cunningham, and Tyler Bernier. And I'll provide a high-level overview before turning it over to our consultants to get into the pertinent details. So this application is for limited and temporary activities in Riverfront, the area associated with the replacement of the existing wells at the Salem Street well field. This well field provides drinking water to the town and has been in place and active since 1969, with the latest replacement happening in 2007. Just for context, water from this well is transported to the Sargent Water Treatment Plant, and then that's ultimately distributed to the towns and businesses throughout Wilmington. Important to note that the water supply infrastructure in town is made up of a couple of components, and they both combine to meet the daily demands that the town requires. The first component would be the local wells. These wells provide source water to the water treatment plants where ultimately, like I mentioned, they're treated and distributed to the town. The second component would be the MWRA supply, and that's purchased water. That's purchased to meet additional demand that's typically done within the warm weather months, and that is usually maxed out to capacity during the warm weather months. Important to note that without the use of the local sources like Salem Street, the town cannot meet demands for drinking water for homes, schools, and businesses. cannot fill our storage tanks or properly provide adequate fire protection, never mind keep rates reasonable for ratepayers. So as far as the water withdrawal amounts, this well field has an existing Mass DEP registration, which defines the allowable amount of water that can be withdrawn. So what does that mean? That means the town will not and cannot withdraw any more water than is currently allowed by the registration that is issued by the state. I should also note that this project has received Mass DEP approval to proceed. This is in accordance with their replacement well guidelines. So why are we here tonight? After receiving some feedback from the commission last meeting, the town and our consultants, we worked to incorporate some of your requests, including some additional project mitigation, and in our opinion, actually exceed the requests of the commission. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kirsten Ryan, and she will go over some of the specifics of the project. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to just share the site plan, the revised site plan, if I could. Can folks see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Great, thank you, Joe. So yeah, as Joe mentioned, this is a limited project, water supply project where the well's been in operation since the 60s, and is, authorized by Mass DEP, who conditions withdrawal of groundwater for public water supply. And this well field has been in operation in accordance with its authorization from DEP and will continue to be. There will be no change as a result of this project to the characteristics of how water is withdrawn from the site, and it's going to continue to be in accordance with Mass DEP regulations. We in the town, initially thought potentially this project could even fall under the exemptions, but with a gray area there, exemption as a utility maintenance activity, we decided to design the project, for commission approval, and design the project so that it would meet all the performance standards. And we have outlined that in the supplemental memorandum that we submitted recently, and providing vegetation restoration area. So I wanted to point that out on the plans. The changes since the last hearing are basically a couple things. At the last hearing, the commission requested a change, a delineation, a field delineation of the mean annual high water line, because GIS had been used for the first submittal. So that was done. The town hired a wetland consultant to delineate that in the field, and we are showing that revised on the plans. So as a result of that, the project is within the 0 to 100 foot riverfront area. So a restoration vegetation area was added here. So the site is, from the project area, is all basically already cleared land, with the exception of this wing to the east, where we proposed extending the fence to encompass one new production well here. That would require the removal of 2 trees. And so this area over here is being proposed at a slightly more than 1-to-1 offset, with plantings of, I believe, 3 trees and 6 shrubs is what we're proposing, chosen from the native species list that Wilmington provided. And that's really the summary of what we're presenting, and turn it over to see if there's any questions.
Thanks. Do you have questions or comments, Valerie or Cameron?
Yeah, we had some comments after reviewing this plan. First, we recommend that the number of plantings be increased. I'd recommend, 5 additional bayberry and 5 additional sweet fern be added to that area, just to make it a little bit more dense with vegetation. We did prepare a draft and we worked that change into the draft. And I would recommend to the commission that a wetland scientist be present and oversee the restoration planting work, just to ensure that the soils are appropriate, the planting's done appropriately, and the elevations stay the same since it's bordering land subject to flooding. So there's no loss of floodplain. And then require, as typical, require 2 full growing seasons of monitoring. And I believe that's those are the comments that we had.
I didn't print it out, but I did read it. Valerie, did you mention substituting some other trees for the birch trees?
We did. So,
Okay.
and I had a conversation with Jamie McGaldy, the tree warden, the town's tree warden today, and did see the comment letter from the Headwater Stream team. So in that draft order, I worked in that a northern red oak be substituted for a gray birch and white pine be substituted for a gray birch. And Jamie can speak to this if he'd like, or if the commission would like him to, but he recommended to not do the aspen just because it's a tree, a species that doesn't last as long. It has a short life, and suggested that maybe the gray birch would be a better choice. So that's what we worked into the order of conditions draft.
Thanks. Okay. Do you have any questions or comments, Vinny?
No, I don't.
Laura?
I do not have any questions.
How about you, Ron?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. I have a comment, and that is one of the written feedback from the Ipswich Watershed Association spoke to the concern that was expressed at the last meeting about the river being being pumped dangerously low during times of drought. And the suggestion that was made actually tied the withdrawal from these wells to a measurement at a USGS gauge, flow gauge in South Middleton. And I'm sympathetic to that. And I'd like to bring that up for discussion with the commission. The suggestion would be to add a condition that says if the flow at this gauge drops below a certain number, and I guess we would have to agree that the number is sensible, then we would not be pumping from the wells until the flow exceeds that number again. And the result would be leaving water in the river as opposed to having it pumped nearly dry.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just offer some additional information. The Mass DEP authorizes these types of withdrawals, and in fact today released proposed regulations to further condition this type of authorization relating to outdoor water use. So I guess I would just offer that to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any local conservation commissions doing something similar, and that the state is in the middle of a rulemaking process to respond to the types of concerns that Ipswich River has raised.
Yeah, and I looked at the regulations, and it appears as if the issuing authority does have the ability to apply a mitigation. Sorry about the clock. Okay. Does have the authority to do this, but you know, I'm also aware of the fact that it seemed to be something that was unusual. I've never encountered it myself.
Okay.
So
I guess I would maybe also just, well, I'm sorry, please, I don't want to interrupt you.
yeah, so I'd like to know a little bit more from the Wilmington water folks as to what actually drives their decision to stop pumping during times of drought. Because I'm not sure what the process is and whether we just be layering something on that complicates things.
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair, I can speak to that. So basically, the water distribution system is based off demand from the town, and it's fairly natural that as the warm weather arrives and as you might see some drying conditions in various rivers and waterways, so forth, the well actually declines in productivity. And in the opposite end, the town increases MWA usage to supplement that. So to give you an example, you pick a warm day in the middle of the summer, the combination of the existing local sources and the MWRA sometimes gives us just the right demand to supply water for the town and properly protect the town from a fire protection standpoint. So it's safe to say that we're not, banking a surplus of water on warm weather days. We're meeting the demand that the town requires from not only a drinking water standpoint, but also for a public safety fire protection standpoint. But we certainly do our best. And I was trending the records earlier today. And if you look at the MWA usage during the warm weather months, since we became a member of the MWRA, it certainly increases drastically, typically from mid-April into September, sometimes even into October, November, like it did in 2020. So we are doing our best to really preserve, the water in the Ipswich River, of course, but at the same time, we do need to meet the demand of the system. So that's why there is a balancing act in the two, and it's not easy. But this flexibility allows us to do a couple different things. Primarily, it allows us to repair wells in case something was to happen in an emergency. So we're not limited and not limited to the actual water that we are available to supply. In a perfect world, it would be ideal to stop pumping at a certain time. But as anyone in the water industry knows, an ideal world doesn't happen. And if it is current, it doesn't last long. So we have 3 other wells in addition to Salem Street well field. And there are times that one might go down. And it's not that we want to pump, we need to pump. But we certainly do our best to monitor the situation and not pump unnecessarily.
Is your decision sort of driven by actually looking at the river at Martins Brook? The parts that you can observe and say, well, it's rather low, and if you can decide to call on the MWRA at that point, do so until it's more full. Do you actually go out and observe?
Absolutely. We have treatment operators who are at our wells on a daily basis. And if you've been to the Salem Street well field, you can see the impacts of dry weather. So we certainly, like I mentioned, do not pump unnecessarily.
You mentioned that when the wells, when there's less water evident in the river, the wells are less productive as well, right? They correlate.
I couldn't say every single time, but there are times when that is the case.
So are there times then when the wells are productive and the water is low?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear that. Could you say it again?
Yeah, are there times then when the water is low, the observed water level in the brook is low, yet the wells are productive? They still are providing a surplus of abundant water.
I wouldn't say in abundance by any means, but there are times certainly, for instance, during droughts where it might look from up above that there's no water, but the wells do supply water to some degree.
Mm.
I think there is a sort of a complex interaction going on between groundwater, the stream flow, the wells, and also don't forget the wetlands that are extensive there are during hot summer weather, plants evapotranspire. So that is a factor in some headwater streams. I've observed it in studies that I've done in other projects where wells are I'm not talking about this well field, but other well fields, the wells are completely turned off and you can see a diurnal pattern. You can see a cycle where the vegetation is, dropping the water level down. And then there is also a lag effect between, seasonal lag effects, droughts from year to year. So I just wanted to make sure people aren't aware you can't just automatically correlate the two things.
Mm. Okay, yeah.
And I don't believe anyone's studied, that I'm aware of this particular location to that detail, so.
Let me pass that around to the other members of the commission. Vinny, do you have any thoughts
No,
about
I
this
don't.
concern, or
No.
how about you, Ron?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure that I've been reassured that if we notice the stream is close to dry, that we will stop pumping and purchase MWRA entirely instead. That I'm not, I haven't heard that here's the limit to what we'll take out, and at this point we stop taking.
Joe, do you want to speak to that?
So we are not able to provide water for the entire town strictly off the MWRA. That's a fact. We do not have the capability for that to happen.
So that if necessary, we would pump the stream dry, but because it was necessary.
I really don't want to get into the specifics because there's a lot of interpretation, and this is probably not the right forum, but there's interpretation out there on what is pumping the streams dry. I'm certainly, people feel, a certain way about it, and I appreciate that, certainly.
Laura, do you have any thoughts?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I guess if there were some solution that sort of guarantees that there's enough water to provide for public safety as well as for residents and industry, and also kept the river flowing, it would be ideal, but I'm not sure that I know exactly what that is. The suggestion that Wayne Castangue made was something in that it sort of said, you know, read this gauge, and if it's, you know, if it's below this, then don't pump. But from what you said, that may be a time when you may not have enough water to address the town's needs. Is that true? Did I say that?
That's
Okay.
true. And I also want to point out the town takes water conservation extremely seriously. We do not pump unnecessarily. We don't use water unnecessarily. In fact, we were recognized by the state DEP with a conservation award as recent as 2018, in fact, 2015 also. So I'm really trying to emphasize the fact that we take everything seriously. Our water conservation efforts are high. Our website has an abundance of information. We are constantly trying to inform residents of not using water unnecessarily. In fact, we distribute pamphlets twice a year, once in the wintertime and once in the summertime, to encourage people to save water with tips and what they can do within their home. So I just want to emphasize the fact that we are taking this seriously and we are doing everything we can, but also trying to meet the demand of the town.
Mm-hmm. Oh, does your, now I guess, does your material, does your process also include observation, and do you publicize that? That you inspect the brook and the wetlands and factor that in there? Is that part of the public information?
The public information is, there's many facets to that. There's the conservation as far as the indoor, outdoor conservation. We also publish water quality reports that talk about, you know, contaminants that have been tested and you know, how our water is produced and where it comes from and the location of the wells. So there's a lot of comprehensive information that goes out on a yearly basis.
Okay. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, can I just add something to the conversation?
certainly.
Sort of just a thought, a little bit of a concern basing the town's pumping on the gauge in Middleton. These types of you know, the water in the Ipswich River is each town is contributing to the status of the Ipswich River. And so, you know, basing the town's pumping on the gauge in Middleton, it doesn't factor in what other things are happening in the river.
Yeah.
There's a thought that you have to start somewhere, right? But I guess I would suggest that if DEP is, I've been told the DEP is looking at ways to change the regulations and condition the licenses or the approvals for withdrawing water. Is it better as a state, more regional approach to make sure that it's not a tragedy of the commons? You know, everyone's contributing and on the same, playing by the same rules. So that's the thought to put out there, because how do you know how to when to stop, and what is it something that's better put in the hands of DEP?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that seemed to be a drawback of having to look at a situation in another town to decide what we do here. So I guess I've exhausted my own questions, but I still do have that concern about, you know, operating the wells and keeping the river alive at the same time. So I'll ask for any comment from the public. And let's limit it to, say, 10 minutes, because we have another agenda item coming along right after that.
So we have, Mr. Chairman, Jamie McGaldy's raising his hand, and then we've got Suzanne Sullivan with the hand raised as well.
Okay, Jamie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can certainly appreciate the dilemma the commission finds itself in. And I think the arguments are strong, but maybe this is just too obvious a comment. I just want to reiterate that, you know, this is not a new well. This is a maintenance project to redevelop something that has been there and has lost some efficiency. So I'd just like to remind the commission that, and I can appreciate Mr. Castonguay's comments too. When I read 310 CMR 10.53, to me, it's a little vague when it mentions mitigation measures, but when I read that, I took that to mean it was more sediment control, erosion control, especially when it's a maintenance project. I didn't take that to indicate that there was control to mitigate withdrawal flow. That's just my opinion, and I just wanted to share that with the commission.
Thank you. Suzanne, you still?
Yep,
Yep.
right
Okay.
here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first just want to say I really appreciate the conversation about this issue. I also, before I get into anything, I just also want to thank the town and the commission for making some of the changes that they've made to the plans. I appreciate that also. And a proper delineation of mean annual high. But I just wanted to touch base. I first want to say these, the headwater streams, the main tributaries are perennial brooks. That means if it's a perennial brook, it doesn't go dry during drought. That's a technical and it's also a regulatory term. So this idea that, you know, because of transpiration, these brooks go dry when during drought, it's just not based in any science whatsoever. These are perennial streams that are protected as perennial streams because as a perennial stream, it has water even during drought. Unfortunately, the town has had quite a history of pumping the headwaters dry for decades. We've tried to make changes over time for decades. We've sat on the Comprehensive Water Resource Management Plan. We've done numerous things to try to get the town to mitigate those impacts. The town's supposed to buy 500,000 gallons per day from, I think that's what the number is anyways, from MWRA during the months of May through September. That's to relax some of the wells to prevent some impacts to the headwaters. It was a part of mitigation for their sewer plan. Back when they did the plan back in 2004, 2005, whenever it was. The town has the ability to pump more MWRA water. They can always, you know, file to pump more. They can do better than what they're doing. The town of Wilmington has a large responsibility in the designation of the Ipswich River being the most endangered river in the country for the second time. Our town, I'm going to say that again, has a large responsibility for that designation. When you eliminate the flow of headwater streams to a river, you impact that river immensely. And that is what Wilmington does. Is this the right forum to be able to correct that? I'm not 100% sure. But does the commission have an obligation to make sure that an applicant doesn't, you know, dry out wetlands? Dry out a stream? I think the commission absolutely has the authority to have something to say about that. If the commission doesn't, then who does? And like I said, I don't know if this is the right forum or not. But that is what the town does. You cannot deny it. We did it at Maple Meadow Brook for years until Olin contaminated the wells. And now Olin complains about not getting into the test wells because there's always water in there. And it was the same thing. All the wells, it just goes dry anyways. You know, we're not pumping it dry, but now since those wells have been off, it never goes dry at Maple Meadow Brook. So I just want to address that so that the commission understands that the town is pumping the brook dry and we do have alternatives. We can maintain the integrity of the headwater streams and supply water to the town. This idea that it's either all or nothing is insane. And we have an obligation to do better. And I know Mike Woods is on the call. I know a lot of people on the call. We can do better. And I think the people of this town would rather spend a little extra money on their water instead of being one of the main culprits of the designation of the Ipswich River being one of the most endangered in the country, not just in the state, in the country. But we do have alternatives. I shared photos with the commission. I hope the commission did review them, and I also shared a video, and I hope you were able to view the video. But in those photos, you can see when the town relaxed the wells at Martins Brook from during the summer months up until September 1st, last in 2020, last year when we had the drought, we had water in the brook. As soon as the town started to pump much harder on September 1st going forward, the brook went dry. And because those wells impact the brook. The physical evidence is there. So once again, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some type of answer to this. And I am going to keep pushing this forward. And I don't know, maybe I'll bring an article to town meeting and ask the people to take a vote on it. The town is pumping more sewer. That's another impact. We want to build, we want economic development, and we want sewer lines. Well, those sewer lines, we dewater the Ipswich River with those sewer lines. We send water out to Deer Island, never to return to the basin. And that's another huge impact to the river. 80% of the water in the Ipswich River is sent to Deer Island or outside of the basin to other towns for them to use. 80% of the water that's pumped out of the Ipswich River goes out of the basin. We dewater the Ipswich River. So if the town wants to grow and it wants sewer lines, like the sewer line for the 40B and down in Route 62 and sewer for North Wilmington, then the town has an obligation to buy more MWRA water under the Comprehensive Water Resource Management Plan. And the town needs to start taking that more seriously and stop committing an environmental crime every single year to Martins Brook and Lovers Brook. And Lovers Brook is pumped dry every year also. So I really appreciate that the commission had this discussion. And I just wanted to say that. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I do.
Thanks for your comment, Suzanne. Is there anyone else who's like to comment?
No other raised hands, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I guess we should be looking at the project then as one that will make our existing well fields work better longer. And as Suzanne suggested, there may be other places to look at the process we use to decide when and how much water we take from the river and how much we take from, I shouldn't say the river, how much we take from the aquifer and how much we purchase from the MWRA. And I realize there's a cost to the users as well, and how that would be distributed. Maybe, maybe industrial use and residential use could be priced to make that work out. But I think what we'll do is we'll look at this as a project that will replace the wells for better performance and for a longer life. So with that in mind, could I have, I'm assuming that we're going to close the hearing. So I'll ask a motion to close the hearing for Salem Street well fields.
So moved.
Laura made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Vinny seconded the motion. The order of conditions that Valerie mentioned, has everyone in the water department on board with the conditions?
We are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I'll ask for a motion then to issue the order of conditions for the Salem Street well fields.
So moved.
Laura made the motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Ron seconded the motion. So how do you vote, Vinnie?
Yes.
Ron,
yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and Don, yes. Okay, well, thanks again for everyone's point of view on this. I hope we get through another tough year with water in the river. I know we're all sensitive to it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Sure, you as well.
And then, Mr. Chairman, just a really kind of picky thing here, but you
Yep.
had a motion and a second to close the hearing, but didn't actually go through that vote. Would you just,
Didn't, okay. To close the hearing then for the vote, Vinnie,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
myself, yes.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Valerie. Yep.
Yep.
So there we are. Next on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Middlesex Ave, the culvert replacement project. And I see that there's a request to continue that.
Yes,
So-
they've requested to continue to the July 7th meeting.
So could I have a motion then to continue the public hearing for the Middlesex Ave culvert replacement
So moved.
to the July, help me with the number?
Seven.
July 7th.
July 7th meeting. And did someone make the motion while I was trying to figure
So
out the
moved.
date?
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Vinnie. And Laura seconded the motion. Okay. How do you vote, Ron?
Yes.
Vinnie?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Don, yes. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for 687 Main Street. And I see they've also requested a continuance. So could I have a motion to continue the public hearing for 687 Main Street to the July 7th meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Vinnie. Second,
I'll second.
Laura seconded the motion. To the vote, Vinnie,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So next up, we have a hearing for a notice of intent for 157 Shawshene Ave.
Hi, good evening. My name's Maureen Harold from Norris Environmental here on behalf of the applicant this evening.
Thanks, Maureen. Could you describe what the project is?
Sure. Would you like me to share the screen as well with the commission?
Sure.
Okay, great. So we filed a notice of intent with the commission to raise an existing single-family dwelling. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see an existing single-family dwelling, driveway area, as well as a shed. We would like to raise these structures to construct a new single-family dwelling, driveway, deck, patio. We are providing rooftop infiltration. The house is proposed to be on a septic system that will be placed in front of the dwelling. Leach field itself will be outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The 100-foot buffer zone is shown right here and highlighted in yellow. On We do maintain the 50-foot buffer for the structure setback for everything, as well as the 15-foot no disturb. We're also proposing a post and rail fence along the 15-foot no disturb. In the erosion controls, they're highlighted in this orange color that pretty much encompasses the entire lot within and just outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We do have bordering land subject to flooding or the 100-year floodplain, and that is shown in the rear at elevation 96. But as you can see, we're not proposing any work within the floodplain itself. And I can open it up to the commission if you have any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Maureen. Cameron or Valerie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did receive some comments from the town engineer, mostly about stormwater, pointing out that the parcel is in the groundwater protection district, so the percentage of impervious on the parcel would need to be provided to know whether a special permit's required. Also, the infiltrator that's shown, typically we require those to be 10 feet off of the property line and 10 feet off of the foundation, 25 feet from the septic system. So that may have to shift a little bit to meet those setbacks. What else? Other things, the storage of the infiltrator, that's accommodated. And then there are other items having to do with utilities that he put into the comments, but can be addressed outside of this process. So we had prepared a draft, but we received the engineer's comments after getting that draft. So if the commission doesn't have anything, have any major changes and would like to approve the project, some added conditions, we can do that. Or if you'd like to see the plans revised to address the town engineer's conditions, that could be requested of the applicant.
In your opinion, are they significant conditions that would?
I don't think so. I think we could work them into plan changes that we could review in the department. I think the only thing that may shift is that infiltrator. That may move a little bit closer to the wetland, closer to, in the backyard instead of the side yard. But they'll have to see where it works. But either way, it's going to be quite a distance from the wetland.
Okay, thanks. And what were the setbacks for the infiltrator again?
Sure, it's 25 feet from the leach field, 10 feet from the property line, and 10 feet from the foundation.
Okay, and right now, it looks like it's close to the property line? That's the,
Yeah, it looks like they have 22 feet between the property line and the home, so they don't quite have room to make those setbacks. So they may have to shift it further back into the backyard.
okay.
I'm sorry.
They could also do it in a single row of chambers as well. So there's some configuration that could go on to meet those setbacks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maureen, you were going to say?
Sorry to interrupt. So I went through the comments with the design engineer. And as Valerie mentioned, the infiltrator will certainly shift, but there's nothing really anything major, I think, with the comments. Of course, it's up to the desire of the commission what you'd like to do tonight. But I think it is something that we can address and satisfy the engineer's comments.
Okay, thank you. So I guess mentally, Is it fair to say if we mentally move the infiltrator to the rear of the house so that it's 10 feet off the foundation, maybe it's sort of where that, maybe it touches the 50-foot buffer,
Right.
somewhere in that vicinity? Yeah, that would be the likely solution. And if we think that's okay, we can vote to close the hearing.
Yes, you can definitely do that if you'd like. And
Yep, okay.
if there are any changes, if they do have to go for a special permit through the Board of Appeals for groundwater, if there's any major changes to the plan, they would have to come back to you and get those approved.
Okay. Well, why don't we sort of throw it open to the other commissioners and see how they feel. Vinny, what's your thought?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, so if they move the infiltrator to the back, that's still okay with you?
Right.
Yeah. Ron?
Yeah, I don't want to slow them down. I just, as long as the order of conditions will specify that a new plan will be drawn that shows the acceptable infiltrator layout. Is that intended?
Yeah, that's what we'd have to do.
Great.
Laura, how about you?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm okay with that if Valerie and Cameron are okay with it too. We'll deal with it by referring to an updated plan and just assure that the other engineering comments are addressed. Okay?
That sounds good. I have some draft language I can share with you.
Sure.
If you want.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me pull that up. I just did track changes to the draft that we had sent out previously and just added in that highlighted condition there that says the approved plan in condition 21B shall be revised to show total proposed impervious area, the proposed infiltrator relocated to meet 10-foot setbacks to the property line and foundation and 25-foot setback to the septic system. Confirm that all runoff from proposed addition will be directed to the infiltrator and provide the static storage volume of the infiltration system. The revised plan will be submitted to the Department of Planning and Conservation for review and approval prior to construction.
Great. Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Everybody else okay with that? So we'll first we'll have I guess we'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on 157 Shawsheen Ave.
There are no hands raised.
Okay. That being the case, could I have a motion to close the public hearing for 157 Shawsheen Ave?
So moved.
Ron made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Vinny seconded the motion. How do you vote, Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Vinny?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Could I have a motion then to issue the order of conditions as amended for 157 Shawsheen Ave?
So moved.
Vinny made the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Ron gets the second for that one. Laura, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Vinny?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good night now.
Bye-bye.
So the next item on the agenda, how are we doing time-wise? Oh, just in time? Or do we have a minute?
We have just a minute or two.
Yeah, all right. I guess I noticed that we have a couple of administrative tree or shrub removals in the packet and they all look fine to me. Is there anything you'd like to say about them or about the administrative tree or shrub removal process in general? No?
I think you might have skipped the certificate of compliances.
I did. I'm just jumping to that used 1 minute.
Oh, okay.
So I'll
Okay.
use it.
Yeah. No. They were all good.
Okay. So then I'll use another minute at least for the certificate of compliances. Did you have a chance to go to 375 Ballardville?
We did, but so I had a conversation with Drew Garvin earlier today. Me and Hai went out a couple weeks ago. Forget the exact date, sorry. But a few weeks ago, and we noticed that there was a large amount of water rushing out of the pipes. And so I called Drew and he kind of explained it. So, and I think he's here right now. So if he wants to explain why there's that amount of water coming out on such a dry week. So we were kind of concerned about that, but Drew wants to.
I'm happy to. Do you want to start your final notice of intent and then give me the floor, or how do you want to do it?
If it's something you can just comment, take a minute to comment on, that would be fine.
Yeah, it's functioning as designed. There's an under drain that runs across the rear of the property, and it was designed and recommended at the time of construction by the geotech to deal with a perched groundwater. There's a pretty good slope that comes off the back of the property right into the pavement, and what it's doing is it's capturing that groundwater and pushing it down the under drain and infiltrating it as well. It's a perforated under drain before it undermines or adversely affects the pavement and the base layers of that pavement, which is part of the reason it broke down and they needed to repave the whole site in that area in the first place. So the reason it's running during a dry time is it is a kind of an artificial groundwater that it is still spring and we've gotten rain and the groundwater is still under there and coming down that slope underneath the ground. So, I can't speak to why it's heavy, to the flow amounts or what would normally be natural, but it's operating as it should is the best I can say.
Is there any way to know if it's putting any sort of pressure on the pavement and your enclosure there?
Well, the fact that it is flowing out the under drain and going to the riprap plunge pool where it's as designed is it's doing its job. It's getting that water out of there before it can adversely put pressure on there and things. So everything, and it's clean water. It's groundwater coming up. So again, everything is functioning as designed.
Okay, all right. How about 377 Ballardville, Cameron?
Is same thing. It was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we issue those two and then jump back to the hearing for 201 Lowell Street? Could I have a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 375 Ballardville Street?
Moved.
Ron made the motion, second.
Second.
Laura seconded. Vinny, how do you vote?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Could I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance for 377 Ballardville Street?
So moved.
Ron made the motion.
Second.
Laura seconded the motion. Vinny, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Myself, yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. All right, so we're going to open the public hearing for 201 Lowell Street. I guess both parcels? Both parcels.
So you want to do both? Hi, this is Eric Olson here with VHB. You want to do both at the same time or do you want to do each parcel separately?
You can do them
They-
both. Maybe you can explain why you divided them up. It wasn't clear to me, but why don't you do them both rather than jumping from one to the other?
Okay. All right, I'll just start in. My name is Eric Olson with VHB. I'm here with Dave Fenstermarker as well from VHB, and we're here to present for the two separate NOIs at 201 Lowell Street. We're here on behalf of Textron Systems Corporation. So in Parcel A, Textron Systems Corporation is the applicant, and National Development Acquisitions LLC is the applicant for Parcel B. So Dave might be able to chime in on this better than I would, but the site was split up into two basically because Textron, is the existing the people that occupy the site right now. And this is a redevelopment of this parcel. And essentially the parcel split up into two where on Parcel A, Textron is going to remain at that location. And in Parcel B, they're proposing a new warehouse where there will be a different company occupying the warehouse. And that's kind of why it was split into two.
Eric, do you have the PowerPoint to?
Yes, so I'll just share my screen and start in on that. All right. My apologies. All right, can you all see my screen?
I can, yes.
All right, excellent. Sorry, I should have brought that up right at the beginning. All right, so so again, this is 201 Lowell Street, two different NOIs. And so just as a project update, the site plan application was submitted on May 6th. The NOI application was submitted on May 12th. There was a community development technical review on May 24th, a stormwater review discussion on May 25th, as well as a site plan review letter that was sent in. And yesterday there was a planning board meeting held. And recently I was able to obtain the NOI file numbers, which I can email to you. So for Parcel A, the file number will be 344-1480, and for Parcel B, 344-1479. The project team, Textron is the owner. And then again, for Parcel A, Textron is the applicant, and National Development is the applicant for Parcel B. And the design team is Magulis Peruzzi, as well as VHB. This is an overview of the existing site. As you can see, we got the existing buildings here. It's a 61-acre site, approximately 724,338 square feet of buildings over 6 separate buildings. It's a general industrial district, and as you can see over here, there's Maple Meadow Brook over to the west within the parcel.
Eric, do you mind just going to presentation mode? I think it's might be a little small on the screen.
Oh, yes. Yes, sorry about that. There we go.
From current slide, you can. That second one, yep.
Thank you. All right. All right, so this is how the parcel is split up. Parcel A is approximately 23.36 acres and Parcel B 36.69 acres. And this is an overview of the resource areas we have on site. The majority of the parcel is within a groundwater protection district zone 2. We have the 100-year floodplain in blue, and we have 200-foot riverfront area. The mean annual high water is right up along the edge of the river here, and as you can see, we have the riverfront area in purple here, and then we have the 100-foot buffer in blue. And so this is an overview of the proposed site. So in Parcel A, this is Building 9, and this will be a remodel of Building 9. This footprint will stay the same. And then in these are the existing buildings within parcel B, and these will all be demolished, and a warehouse will be built in there. So as you can see, there's the existing buildings are 724,338 square feet. The remaining Textron building, building A, will be 209,608 square feet. The proposed warehouse would be 305,325 square feet. So the total new buildings would be 514,933 square feet, which would be a net reduction overall of 209,405 square feet. And this is an overview of basically the resource areas overlain with the proposed work. Let me kind of get you in here on a, all right, so I'll go through parcel A first. On parcel A, as you can see right here, this is the dividing line, this white line right here. So this building over here is building 9. And so for parcel A, the proposed Textron remodeling project consists of the remodeling of the existing building 9 and additional site improvements to the site. Those site improvements include updates to the existing paved parking area which surrounds building 9. And these improvements will include grading, stormwater improvements, utilities, landscaping, parking, circulation, and access to the site. And all the proposed alterations to the resource areas will take place on existing paved parking areas, maintained lawn, and landscaped areas. So there'll be no impacts to any areas that weren't already previously disturbed. The proposed improvements will result in a total reduction of impervious surface within bordering land subject to flooding of approximately 7,617 square feet. Within the RFA, this, as you can see, this is the riverfront area over here. There's a small 869 square foot area within the RFA, and that'll be a reduction in impervious area, and it will become a landscaped area over there. And an overall reduction of impervious area within parcel A of 0.78 acres. And within the buffer zone, the project won't result in any alterations to BVW. Work within the 100-foot buffer zone includes approximately 39,567 square feet of work to existing paved areas, maintained lawn, and landscaped areas. So again, all work within disturbed areas. The proposed improvements will result in a total reduction of impervious surface within the buffer zone of 12,853 square feet. And to jump over to parcel B, it's a lot of the same story. So just to summarize, within parcel A, the resource areas being affected are bordering lands subject to flooding, total of 16,786 square feet, and riverfront area of 869 square feet. So
Excuse me,
jumping
Eric,
over,
this is Rich. I just wanted to point out that on this diagram, the blue line it's a little hard to read, obviously, because the blue line is the riverfront area. So it's just that very small triangular area where we're actually creating open space to support the new LID feature that will be impacting riverfront area. So that area that it's the 200-foot offset to the bank of the brook. That's like along. You can point out a little bit further over this. Unfortunately, there's 2 blue lines in this diagram, but the squiggly
I apologize.
The squiggly one is riverfront. The squiggly one is floodplain, and the more linear is the riverfront area.
Riverfront area,
So it's just
exactly.
that tiny little triangle in the corner.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, I apologize. The lines were slightly separate colors, but they kind of come out looking the same. And so to jump over to parcel B, within parcel B, impacts to resource areas are within bordering land subject to flooding. There'll be approximately 16,875 square feet, as well as approximately 25,350 square feet within buffer zone. So the proposed warehouse project consists of demolition of the 5 buildings as I showed before. So these 5 buildings will be demolished, and the proposed warehouse will be built. And these will also consist of site improvements, including updates to the parking, grading, stormwater improvements, utilities, landscaping, parking, vehicle circulation, and access. All proposed alterations to the resource areas, again, will take place within existing paved parking areas, maintained lawn and landscaped areas, all previously disturbed areas. The proposed improvements within parcel B will result in a total reduction of impervious surface within BLSF of approximately 16,756 square feet and an overall reduction of impervious surface within parcel B of approximately 0.75 acres. So the mitigation measures during construction will consist of erosion and sediment controls, non-structural practices such as temporary stabilization, temporary seeding, permanent seeding, pavement sweeping, and dust control, as well as structural practices, including erosion control barriers, stabilized construction entrances, temporary sediment basins, catch basin inlet protection, and dewatering filters. And then as well as stormwater management, which Dave will talk a little bit about.
Thanks, Eric. And just to sort of reiterate, we've had some comments back and forth. We've had some great conversations with staff and with Paul at the DPW. And as you mentioned, these are two parcels, two applications, but we're looking at it as one project. So really looking at it holistically on the stormwater improvements. So just kind of reiterate what Eric said, within the BVW, limiting the work to really restoration efforts, water quality improvements, and removal of impervious. In the floodplain, limited work with no change in the grade. And the riverfront area, as Rich mentioned, just that triangular piece. But from a stormwater management standpoint, really looking to protect those natural resources, the soil erosion and sediment control, attenuating peak rates of runoff, enhancing the water quality. And I think if go to the next slide, Eric, we'll sort of highlight some of the locations on site. So I think one of the cool points of this is where we show these gravel wetlands and rain gardens. These are all areas that are pervious areas now. Some of them are in some of the setbacks, but we were able to eliminate the northernmost entry and parking lot along Lowell Street where that first gravel wetland is. So that's a double benefit of reducing the impervious and adding a gravel wetland. We're implementing some proprietary structures as the Infiltrator treatment on the existing Textron lot in parcel A, where we're not really regrading the site, we're reusing the pavement and the building, but an opportunity to add green space. And when we did that, presented some opportunities to not only just collect the water and catch basins and have it go into the wetlands. Now we're adding interim treatments, whether it's a rain garden or a bioswale, adding in some deep sump. So really enhancing the stormwater existing for this Textron side and for the warehouse side, really investing in and integrating some of these low impact designs such as the gravel wetlands.
Yeah, Dave, I think just to put a little bit of emphasis on that, this is Rich Holworth again, sorry. We really tried to balance the interests, obviously, so the hierarchy of which was to try to preserve the wetland buffers and create more open space adjacent to the wetland resource areas on site. But like the area to the south along the Textron parking lot is largely devoid of any landscaping right now. It's basically like a guardrail installed in the middle of a paved area for those of you who might not have driven through the backside of that site in some time. And then also we tried to, maintain that hierarchy of establishing a lot of the mature plantings along Lowell Street to help buffer the building from the roadway. So we tried to be as thoughtful as we could in the design, and then obviously incorporating some, significant improvements from a stormwater management perspective as well.
Thanks, Rich. And I will say that we did submit the stormwater report with the NOI. We've received comments. We've had a couple of meetings with Paul, and the intent is that we're going to, take some of that feedback, add some clarifications, some improvements, and resubmit that stormwater report. But the overall goal is to enhance the stormwater even above from what we submitted originally. I think that's good, Eric, if you want to move on. And just some examples where up in the top left is the sort of the Filterra systems where we're going to be sheet flowing into these box systems. And I'm not sure how many gravel wetlands you've had a chance to see, but there's an example of one that we recently did. With the high groundwater that's out there, this is a great option to get the treatment that we're looking for. And then in the top right was, some thoughts on what we would do on the Textron side, where we can take advantage of some of these depressions in the landscape areas to provide some additional stormwater. And as Rich said, we were really, won't get too much into the landscaping, but really balancing, the benefits out there. Really a lot of mature trees along Lowell Street that we want to keep, understanding, where we want to put the stormwater versus keeping the mature trees that are out there, and really respecting the buffers that are out there. So I think if you go to the next sheet, it kind of gives a good example of, this is what you're going to see, maintain these, and then where some of these areas shown of where we're taking away pavement. So there's an opportunity to, again, supplement some of the mature landscaping out there now with some new landscaping.
Okay, thank you very much. Cameron and Valerie, would you like to start off?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We issued some comments to the applicant team, and the town engineer and deputy fire chief issued comments as well. Those comment letters are in your Dropbox, and you can review those. Wanted to go over, I know that the team's working on some changes to the plans, so you're going to see revised plans, but wanted to just point out that some of the comments that we made regarding the resource areas specifically. The first plan set that was submitted had, I think, a printing error. So the BVW flags and some of the flags didn't show up. We did review what they submitted for the planning board plans. Looked like there were some riverfront or mean annual high water flags that weren't connected. So I'd like to get some more clarification from them on that, and ask the commission if they think a peer review of the resource areas would be appropriate in this case, since we're dealing with riverfront and BVWs and floodplain. The floodplain wasn't originally shown on the proposed sheets. It was on the existing conditions. So we've asked them to show the floodplain on the proposed plan sheets so that we can see what's happening, what proposed changes are happening within the floodplain. Another comment we made, they call out new stabilization at the drainage outfalls. Some of those outfalls are within BVW, so we wanted to get more detail on what exactly would be happening within those areas and what impacts would result to the BVW. Another specific comment up in the corner where BVW flag 536 is on the site. It's kind of the uppermost left side of the site. There's a little bit of work that looks like maybe encroaches on your typical 15-foot no disturb setback that you typically look for. So ask them to look at that and see if that could be avoided. That was our kind of initial look. The town engineer had comments on utilities and stormwater, and I know they're working on some changes to that. But I guess the main question tonight would be is whether the commission would like to conduct a peer review of the resource areas and the NOI. And if so, I guess staff recommendation would be to have LEC do the work if they can, since they've been reviewing riverfront for us a few projects now and are familiar with some of those areas in town. Thank you.
Sure. And your sense, you're preferring a peer review because of the is it the sort of
Yeah, mostly because of the riverfront. I think, as you know, there's a lot of discussion in about where exactly the mean annual high water is and where riverfront projects onto sites. And Maple Meadow Brook is, is similar to other parts in town. So want to just make sure that we have an accurate delineation of that going forward.
Okay, thanks.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I don't know if it gives you any more comfort, but the project was the subject of a 2010 Order of Resource Area Delineation, which was approved by the commission. I just wanted to point that out because there was a prior proposal that Textron was contemplating some expansion of their facilities, and at that time it was reviewed. And I don't believe there's been any substantive changes to the bank of the brook, but obviously open to whatever decision you make as far as a peer review goes.
Thanks. So is that it for the staff, for Cameron and Valerie?
Yeah, for now, there's a lot more comments that were included in the comment letters, but those were more specific to the resource areas.
Okay, great, thanks. Vinny, do you have any thoughts, questions, comments?
What is this storage area? What is Textron going to put in there, or what are they going to use it for?
I believe it's predominantly a consolidation of their existing uses on the site. They've had for some time, those buildings that are out there that have been sort of almost excess real estate in their minds. And some of which is, subject to limitations on, for the defense contracts. But I believe for the most part, it's just a consolidation of what's out there on the site today.
At a later date, this is not going to be rental units, is it?
I don't think there's any expectation of that.
There wasn't any talk about it?
Not to my knowledge.
Again, are you talking about the warehouse?
The warehouse, yes. I'm not happy with a warehouse right there. It's not a good not a good fit for Wilmington. I'm done.
Yeah, I got the impression that one of the reasons for, I'll just jump in for a sec, just to clarify, that dividing it into parcel A and B was that the warehouse might be used by someone other than Textron. Was I wrong?
No, that's correct. I'm sorry if I misinterpreted the other question. I think the intent is that ultimately the two facilities would be under separate ownership. Textron would continue their operations in a consolidated facility in what we refer to as Building 9, the sort of more beige-like colored building on this diagram. And the new building would be occupied by a new tenant that has not been identified as of yet.
So you'd lease it out to someone, that space out to someone?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
See, I don't think you're being honest with us here. I see too many parking spots, and it's not just going to be a warehouse that Textron is going to use.
No, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm perfectly clear. The new warehouse building is not intended to be used by Textron. That would be a new facility under separate ownership or operation or a tenant in that situation. And the parking that is provided in accordance with the zoning bylaw. And we actually agree with you that the parking demand for these types of facilities is typically a bit lower than what the zoning requirements would otherwise require.
So why don't you use less parking and then come back later if you need more parking?
We've actually eliminated a lot of the impervious surfaces associated with the existing pavement out there, but we do have an obligation to provide a complying plan under the zoning bylaw as well. So it's a balance of all those interests. many of these areas that you see in light green on this diagram are elimination of existing paved surfaces that support the existing Textron facility.
Mm. Anything else, Vinny, or?
Yeah, I'm aggravated.
Okay. Ron, how about you?
I'm not sure I heard an answer to the question, what is going to be warehoused there? In a change, it's not going to be Textron that's using the warehouse. Who
Right.
will be using it and what will be stored there?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Sherry Clancy. I'm from National Development. I'm the project manager for this project. And National Development is purchasing the second lot, Lot B, from Textron to build a warehouse. It's a speculative development. We do not have a tenant yet, but it will not be a Textron occupied building. We're doing this strictly as a new venture.
What is the warehouse being designed to house?
It's being designed, it's basically being designed to function as a warehouse and distribution facility. It's not being designed for any specific use or type of operation at this time. This is a very basic building design that would work for a variety of different tenants.
Yeah.
We're anticipating we'll probably have a single tenant in this building, but we might have two, but we're anticipating it would be a single tenant.
Mm-hmm. More, Ron?
No, I do like the idea of a peer review where we've got a large commercial proposal alongside of our riverfront area here.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Laura?
No more questions.
Okay. I noticed that the comments that we saw from fire and engineering really suggested that a lot of the traffic concerns have to be taken care of. So I think they'll be looking to make sure that whatever is there can be used without too much disruption of traffic and stuff like that. I don't have any more questions at this time. So is there anyone, Valerie, in the audience who's interested in commenting?
I do not have any raised hands at this point.
Okay. I'd be in favor of the peer review. And Ron said he favors the peer review. Laura?
Yeah, a peer review sounds good.
Okay. How about you, Vinny?
You know, I'll go along with that, definitely.
You said yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, we can start that process. We can reach out to LEC to see if they can do the peer review, if that's okay with the commission.
Yes.
Do we have any requirement for a competitive bid on this, or?
I don't believe we have to. We can if we want to get quotes from different peer reviewers, we can do that.
If LEC has an inside track because they're familiar with the area already from other projects, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that we're legal with that. If we're legal with that, fine. I'm not sure town law in terms of competitive bid on a project like that.
And is the applicant team okay with hiring LEC for a peer reviewer?
So Valerie, just explain to me, because different towns work in different ways. Oftentimes we end up paying these consultants directly, so the funds don't come from the town budget. How does it work here in Wilmington?
So with our peer reviewers, we actually contract with them and get the funds from the applicant to pay them directly.
Okay.
So we would contract with them, get the funds, and we would be the one who would pay those bills.
So we pay Wilmington, and then Wilmington pays the consultants. Is that the way it works?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're fine with that. I think, we want to make sure that there's a good consensus on the line, and there's no issues with that. So, and I think that would be a good process.
Good.
And Ron, if the commission prefers, we can reach out to multiple parties to get quotes. LEC came to mind specifically since they've been doing a lot of riverfront work for us.
I'm perfectly fine with LEC.
Okay.
I in other public commissions I've served on, there were requirements for when you had to go for a competitive bid. As long as that doesn't apply here, I'm fine to just go with LEC.
Okay, and I'll confirm that too. If we do, we'll just put out 3 quotes, request for quotes, and go through that process.
Great.
Okay. Will you have enough of this settled to meet again on July 7th?
I certainly hope so. I think a lot's going to depend upon how quickly the reviewer can be engaged and, can complete their report. But we will have everything we need to give them certainly by the beginning of next week, and we'll be able to get them what they need. Hopefully that'll give them over a month or close to a month to review the material and produce their report.
Okay. So could I have a motion to continue the meeting, the public hearing for 201 Lowell Street till the July 7th meeting?
So moved.
Ron made the motion. Second, please.
Second.
Laura seconded the motion. How do you vote, Vinny?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
And yes, myself. Thanks. We'll see you in a month.
Thanks very
Thanks
much.
for your comments and your patience.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
Bye.
Okay, we're going to pick up with the certificate of compliance for 24 Hobson Ave.
I went out and I have no comments.
So they're good.
They're good.
Great. Could I have a motion then to issue the certificate for 24 Hobson Ave?
A move.
Thank you, Laura. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vinny. All in, let's see, how do you vote, Laura?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Vinny?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We have updates, 66 Lawrence Street.
So it's going to be the same thing for both 66 Lawrence Street and 5 Oxbow. They still had a couple of changes that they needed to make to their RDAs. So they'll be ready by the July 7th meeting.
Okay. We don't have to vote on that. Thanks for the update, though. The meeting minutes for May, has everyone had a chance to look at them?
I did make 2 additional changes. The minutes, bear with me, I just need to find them. One was just a capital T. On, I can't find it. Page 7. So on page 7, when the vote to continue the public hearing for Salem Street, it has a capital T. where it's voted 5-0, the word "to," I changed that to a small t. That is in the Dropbox. I just wasn't sure who was looking at what. And then on page 11, Shady Lane Drive, the last document, the email from Paula Looney, it says April 5th, that it's dated April 5th. It actually was dated May 5th. And I had already made those changes.
Okay. I had a suggestion for page 7.
Yeah.
The last paragraph, Paula Looney advised that the culvert is a heavily traveled area. Would it be more accurate to say that that Middlesex Ave in the vicinity of the culvert is a heavily traveled area? Because in the next sentence you say this road.
That's okay with me.
Okay. And on page 9, in the first paragraph, there's a sentence that ends currently exists. And I read it a couple of times to myself before I had a snack. That might be the problem. But I couldn't figure out, it could have ended with into, period. Does that look okay to everyone else?
Don, I'm not sure where you're referring to on page 9.
Top of page 9.
Yep.
The fourth and fifth line down.
And
Okay.
the first paragraph, there's a sentence that ends currently exists, comma, currently exists.
Maybe that comma is throwing you off. Because if you say to Salem Street where the gravity line that they would tie into currently exists.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
It's the comma.
The comma.
Yeah.
Good.
Fine with me.
And then on the second to last paragraph, the operation and maintenance plan, I didn't really ask. I sort of mentioned that it referred to the wrong town. Because it makes me look sort of stupid if I asked if it's okay for it to
Gotcha. Yeah. So you want to say mentioned or advised? Mentioned?
Yeah, mentioned would be good.
Okey doke.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And I would take out the word that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mention that the operation maintenance plan refers to the town of Holbrook.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything, or are we ready to vote on this? Hearing nothing, let's vote. Could I have a motion to approve the Conservation Commission minutes for the May 5th meeting as amended?
So moved.
Laura made the motion. Second, Vinny, was that you? Thank you. How do you vote, Vinny?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
And yes for me. Thank you. You know, I noticed at the end that you always put down next meeting and you give the date. Always during the meeting sometime I sort of panic and I say, when's the next meeting? If I just turn the page over, I'd know. So
Mr. Chairman, speaking of the meeting, the next meeting will be held in person. The governor's orders are expiring. So per open meeting law, we will need to meet in person going forward. So July 7th meeting will be in the Town Hall auditorium, and we'll have everybody spaced out. You can wear a mask if you'd like. We will have the public invited I wouldn't expect any large crowds, but they'll be invited. And we'll also put on the agenda the election of officers, which we are a little late on, but we'll put that on the next agenda.
I'd ask everyone to examine their hearts and their ambitions, you know, to see whether you want to vote any of the current officers out and vote yourselves in. So it's a little plug. The sound is usually sort of crappy in that room. Are you going to, I understand you're going to do it for social distancing. Is there anything you can do to sort of make it work a little bit better as a public meeting space? Or you got that under control?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think we'll have to sort of yell at each other. But yeah, we don't have a sound system set up.
All right, we'll just sort of, it'll be fun to see what we all look like again. So
I think for me, from a recording point, yes, definitely speak loud and clearly, because it will be hard to record.
Yeah, with the little recorder that we use.
I think
Yeah.
probably just about any recorder, but yes, definitely with the little one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe you could remind us at some point if
I will.
we're starting to mumble. Okay.
We sure will.
Thanks for your time. Have a great 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
You too.
midsummer.
Happy 4th. Yes.
Do we want to adjourn?
Yes. I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting, and it's 8:55. Is there a second?
Second.
Laura seconded the motion. Okay. How do you vote, Laura?
Yes.
How do you vote, Ron?
Yes.
Vinny?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next month.
We'll see you
Thanks.
next
Have a
month.
great 4th, everybody.
Yep.
Good night, everybody.